Von Washington Jr., welcome to Unstuck. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast, man. Welcome.
Hey, I'm excited to be here, Tim. It really is a pleasure. And whenever we talk about being unstuck or being stuck, a lot of people find themselves in that. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Heck yeah, man. And you are right now a leader in a national model for the Kalamazoo Promise. Some would argue the greatest philanthropic gift ever given in the history of the United States. And now, after 10 years, 20 years,
20,
will
20.
be 30 years coming
Yeah.
up before you know it. You've got some lessons that we could learn about how community and philanthropy and education work together. But long before you had the title of CEO and president, you had a life and you had a community and you have a family and you have a pathway to success. I just want to unpack first. Tell me about growing up, where you did, and how that impacts how you lead today.
Well, I tell you, my story of growing up is one of a lot of movement. My father was in the military. And so, I was born in Great Falls, Montana. Surprises a lot of people, but there's an Air Force base there. 4 years later, we're living in Germany. I start kindergarten through sixth grade in Germany. And so our kindergarten through fourth grade in Germany. And then we moved from Germany, to Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I go, fourth grade through seventh grade in Kalamazoo. Then I'm going seventh grade through 12th grade in Ann Arbor, and those types of things. So we moved a lot. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned over time about that was it taught me the skill of starting over, which is
Mhm.
one that people who are stuck have a very hard time doing. And it also gave me the skill of meeting new people and what the importance of was able to do that. I find that to be very skillful, but sometimes, I feel sentimental when I talk to people who have friends from high school and
Yeah.
they still know each other and stuff like that. I don't have that in my history. I've always had to make new friends, and that's impacted me as I've had relationships. Change was always a constant for me. But that's what it kind of looked like for me growing up. And in each one of those chapters, there were different people, different set
Mhm.
of circumstances, and different lessons learned at each one of those stops. And it continued as I, was married, had children. I coached basketball for 4 years one place, 4 years another place. That kind of newness stuck with me, whether it was on purpose, subconsciously, or those new opportunities continue to present themselves.
And change is hard for everybody, but it seems like right from the start, you had lessons in change that allow you to be much more okay with change. Do you find yourself moving faster than others because of that? Like, how does that impact how you show up today as a leader?
That's a really good way to say it. It does because you have to always be agile and ready for what that next change would be. I wasn't always chasing something new. Something new presented itself. So all the time that came up, they say there are innovators and there are managers when it comes to types of leadership. And innovators have 3 to 5 years. Innovate, do their thing before people are like, we tired of you innovating. We tired of this or that because innovators bring change. And then that's when managers step in. And those managers step in and they kind of manage the situation. And sometimes they're a longer term individual in an organization. And so I find myself a lot on that innovation side. I want to put
Mm,
new things in. It's not that I always get there thinking I have a plan. I assess the situation and hope that we can make it better. And this is a chance to move people in their lives. That's why I'm not surprised that I ended up in the work that I'm doing, because this is nothing but a body of work of helping people elevate their circumstances and their situation.
yeah. You talked about your father and your mother. You're a junior, and I've had the pleasure of meeting senior. And he has kicked off some of the greatest wisdom one-liners I've ever heard in my life. Uh, Talk to me about Von Senior and his impact on life and the community and leadership. What was it like growing up with a guy uh, who wrote movie scripts? I mean, this guy is different.
He comes from a family of 14 brothers and sisters,
My,
born and raised in Albion, Michigan. When he graduated from high school, they lined all the African American males up and they brought him into the counseling office one by one and told him, get a job with your hands. He remembers that day. He remembers that conversation. My grandfather was a very hardworking man, but because he had so many children, it was nothing but work, work, work. So you couldn't participate in sports like you wanted to. People weren't coming to your games and stuff. And at Christmas, if you got a gift, that was a special Christmas. But other than that, all resources and time went into raising this very large family. So
mm,
when he had the opportunity, when he left high school, he said, "Man, I gotta get out of here." He saw the writing on the wall. It was stay here, work finger to the bone, you know, or make a move. And so he went to the military. That was the
mm,
opportunity that he had. He went to the military and it served him well. 12 years he was in the military. But while he
wow.
was there, his desire to, as you mentioned, write, his desire to, and he looked at my mother at one point and said, I want to write like you do. She was a very accomplished writer from what she learned in high school. And he wanted
Mm,
those things. So after 12 years, he got out, used his GI Bill. And that's why we ended up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where he attended Western Michigan University. And then he made his career in theater and
wow.
communications. So, long story short, he, for 22 years, was the head of the multicultural theater department at Western Michigan University after travels at the University of Michigan and Wayne State, and they're back here. To your question, what was it like growing up with him? Because he lived in such a way where he had to fend for himself a lot, find the things that he had. I found myself that way too. I knew there was structure at the house. I knew you better get good grades. I know you better do this, but I'm gonna tell you, it wasn't a lot of monitoring. It
Mm,
was only those moments when the grade report was due, and that's when you would have your reckoning. And if it
yeah,
didn't look right, the school was never at fault. It was
right.
me. And so the only thing he would tell me when I would leave any day, he'd be like, "Hey, don't have that school call me.
Yeah,
I better not hear anything from anybody other than how are you doing in school." And believe me, I did that didn't always make me do well in school now. I was up and down sometimes, had to deal with the consequences. But growing up with him, you knew that there was structure, food on the table, roof over your head, and you knew the things that you had to do, and you better listen to your mother. He, as a theater person, his activity was at night a lot. So
mm,
he didn't make my sporting events. He didn't make, a lot of the opportunities I had because I did pursue theater as well. So he couldn't
yeah,
make those things. But I just had to know he was doing what he had to do
yeah.
for us and not let that define my experience with those things. But he did have a lot of one-liners and he didn't have much time for complaining. And that's when the one-liners came out the most. And so,
When you were trying to complain about something, like I remember one, I just got to share this story, was about sports.
well, yeah,
And you weren't getting playing. Von, you're a college basketball player. You went on to play basketball in college at the collegiate level. And I think even a little semi-pro, but your dad told you that if you weren't playing, no coach wants to lose.
man.
So do what you got to do to
He
put
he
yourself in
he's
a position where he thinks you can win. You can play, Dad, I'm not getting time. The coach don't like it. Say, hey, man, no coach wants to lose.
he said that I was talking to my mother. I was complaining. He snatched the phone. He said, "Hey, man, no coach wants to lose," and gave her the phone back. I didn't talk to him for a year. I wanted a plane ticket out of there. I wanted home. Man, he made me face everything, and
That reality, man.
he was willing not to talk to me for a year if a lesson could be learned. And I learned a very valuable lesson. It helped me understand as I went forward, really what my actual value to any situation was, and I was not going to inflate that value. you know,
Mm,
I'm not going to inflate that value, and I need to understand what I bring to the situation, what value I'm bringing to it. Am I taking away from it? and I need to own that. And that helps you have better conversations with the people that are involved, especially with people who are in charge. If I can't get to that, then I'm going to have a lot of problems managing and understanding what's going on. And that's where the excuses come and, blaming everybody else. So that moment was pretty defining for me as I sat there in Colorado at Western State University, wondering what my
Mm.
next move was. And I finished my career there and stuff, but I really take it back to that moment.
Powerful, man, because I had Dr. Dayan Dowse on here before, and he was talking about responsibility and that attitude of owning what is yours to own, right? And your dad seems to come up in a generation and a time and experience where he gifted you that gift of own what's yours and take advantage of opportunities, and you certainly have. Your career went on, went from a athlete to a coach and then an educator. Where did the love for developing others come in? Like, where did that happen? Where you wanted to be to give back to folks who had just traveled your roads?
Man. So, yeah, this is a really good question because it happened very early. So,
Mm,
as they say, some people were born with something or have something. This was in me well beyond or before I recognized it. So, I was always a marginal athlete, but I knew the importance that people placed on athletics and those individuals. So, having moved all the time, having to build new relationships everywhere I went, athletics was a very valuable place to lock in. But I was always marginal. I was called a late bloomer. I was skinny, little old scrawny joker running around trying to be a part of sports. And so I wanted to play so bad that I found myself on nights and weekends helping younger kids than me play football. Like, I- you know, I started rocking football with two little kids in a one uniform kit. One got the helmet, one got the shoulder pads, and then I would go and find somebody across, the street and tell him, "You get you two kids." And we'll have our kids play each other. So I started coaching even when I was middle school, high school,
jeez.
doing stuff like that. I remember one time I
You
painted the
out
helmet
recruiting on the street corner
on the street corner. I remember I
for a
painted the
football
helmet
team.
one time. Yeah, I painted the helmet, did this and that. And we wanted to play so bad, I put the helmet on Freddie's head. Freddie took the helmet off, had paint all on his head. Freddie's mama came running down, yelling at me, "What you doing to Freddie over here?" And stuff. I said, "We playing football."
Hey,
But
man.
so it started early for me, middle school, high school, once again, trying to make friends with people. And a lot of times,
Mhm.
little kids, if they think you know how to do something, they're excited, and then you start teaching them. So that really kicked in. The love for coaching happened when I was in college and started to work on weekends with individuals who wanted skill development. And then I would do a little bit of that, make a little bit of money, trying to help students in the summer get some skill development. And then it really translated when I left basketball, came home, was sitting here wondering, what am I going to do? So I started a master's degree in educational leadership. And
Mhm.
doing that brought those two things together because in education, there is a respect for what interscholastic sports can
Yeah,
bring to the situation, and those dudes got married together, and I was able to leverage that.
you sure did. You went on to be an assistant coach at Kalamazoo Central High School, and as a matter of fact, listening audience, cool note, that's where Vaughn and I really got connected. Vaughn was an intern coach at when I was playing basketball in high school, and just for the record, so we don't start no mess, I was a decent basketball player. Decent.
Good thing there's not 3 people on this podcast because if somebody had to ask, then people, our friendship could be in jeopardy. But
I don't I don't I don't I don't oversell it. One thing we do know is that the generations in front of us are better than behind because both your son and mine are better than we were.
There's no question. My son, he started on our high school basketball team when I was a principal. They went to 3 state championships in a row. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight, Tim's son, TJ, is playing for a district championship. And would this be
He
the
is.
second district championship for him, right? They won last year, 3rd district championship. And so they're playing tonight. And, consequently, Tim mentioned that we were together at the same time. He always stood out to me, the fact that Tim and I are talking to now and he's in the position that he's in and the trajectory that he's had. Many projected this and picked this out in him when he was in high school. And everybody can't say that, but you were setting yourself up for opportunities to lead. And, you did it in a different way in high school and you're here now. So that's a testament to that. And I think your son is going to do the same.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that, and I think part of leadership is about your wiring, but also who you learn from and how you develop passions for how to use your gifts. And I could just see you. You thought I was a different student athlete, but you were also a different coach, because you cared at the individual level, but you worked at the system level. And I think that translates very well into your time as a administrator in education, a coach in education. And we did a stint in economic development together later on. I mean, the trajectory of your growth just continued everywhere you went. You took the same approach. Make connections and friendships and relationships with people, look for opportunities to develop and make things better, and then figure out a way to get a team on the floor to win. And with that history of work, we fast forward to the birth of the Kalamazoo Promise. And Janice Brown, Dr. Janice Brown, was the first director and started that work with the Promise. And when it was time to transition the Promise from announcing and beginning to really taking that next level of this transformational scholarship having a different kind of impact in the world, you got a phone call. Take us back to how you got involved and how that changed the trajectory of your career.
Yeah, and we don't want to forget there was one important piece with that. So I did 22 years in education. The last 8 years, I was a high school principal, Kalamazoo
Mhm.
Central High School, as we
Yep.
mentioned earlier. But I was approached, and I was approached by you about
Mm.
another opportunity because you were already working in economic development, and you felt strongly that there could be more for what I was doing. And I will never forget that, and I always appreciate it. And so I took a risk to come into economic development. And for anybody on here, this was one of the greatest risks I had ever taken. I was married, I had 2 children, and all I knew was education. I was walking
Right.
away from that to go into something new and, very foreign to me. And so that was a very big choice. A lot of people ask me, how did you get here? And that risk taking at that time had everything to do with the opportunities that I have now. Because once I went into economic development, I was exposed to and worked with many of the people that then potentially had the opportunity to offer this one to me. So after a year's time working in economic development, I was approached by the people that at the time were supporting this, Dr. Brown and others, and they asked me, can you help us take this to another level? And this was one of the best conversations I ever had. It was a no-brainer. And now here we sit. I've been with the Promise about 15 years now, 20 total as I was a principal when it was announced, and now on the other side of administering the scholarship and trying to support.
It's amazing, man. And I think we should pause here to just talk a bit about talent and opportunity, because I just believe with all my heart that every human being is wired uniquely with a set of talents that if you put them into play, it can really have a positive experience on the world. But not everybody gets opportunities like we've had them, and yet everybody doesn't step into different. And I think one thing I can say about you and one thing I can say about me is that as people, somewhere we learn not to be afraid to try something we didn't know. That walking away from what's familiar really is a part of being a leader. doing something different or trying something and betting on yourself. And I can go down through your career and in some cases mine and see that. And I think that's really important for people coming behind you and coming behind me, that you got talent and that there are opportunities that pop up everywhere. And sometimes they look so foreign to you, you don't really know what to do with it. But in this particular case and in others, you said, even though I don't know that, I can step to the opportunity and I can grow in it. What do you say about that for you? I mean, that's what I observe, is that talent and opportunity, you stepped up to both. And that's really what it takes a lot of times to get to another place or to get unstuck.
Yeah, and getting unstuck requires a lot of times it's a two-layered proposition because not only did I take a risk, decide to, I mean, literally, I put it all on the line. You know, once again, I had a family that was there. One thing I knew was that when my family was much younger, I hustled. So I was doing plays and stuff with my parents, volunteer
That's right.
basketball coaching, working as a children's librarian in Battle Creek. I mean, you know, always going to make sure we put food on the table. And if you hustle that way, then you get the opportunity to see what opportunities are there for you. And so I
That's
knew
right.
I would hustle. So when taking the risk, I definitely said to myself, if it doesn't work, we're going to have a roof over our head. We're going to figure it out because that's how we could do that. So the second layer of taking a risk was the leadership that took the chance on me because it was a two-way risk here. And so
That's
they
right.
took a risk too. But from the school of thought that these individuals came from, to your point, talent has a way of figuring it out. And so they believed in that. You know, they did have some, you know, tools that they used to try to figure out who that talent was before they got there. But talent has a way of figuring out, I am a product of that. You are a product of that. People seeing something in you, taking that risk and allowing you to then grow within that risk, not defining you, not boxing you in. And so that was there, and that's a big thing. So for anybody trying to become unstuck, relationships become tantamount to the
Mhm.
ability to do it. You have to be a self-starter for sure, but relationships become tantamount. You got to find those people that believe that talent will have a way of figuring it out, and
That's
you
right.
can, and they are out there. It's so hard to explain to someone who feels stuck, though, that you too can become unstuck. It is really about taking the risk and doing it, but sitting still, you're definitely not going anywhere.
It's about that risk and it's about moving and it's about, I think it's about that mirror and just getting better, right? As people and as leaders. And I've seen you take what you're doing and improve it. When the promise was launched, it was just this unbelievable jaw-dropping opportunity, this philanthropic gift from anonymous donors. And we thought we knew what the promise was and what it wasn't. We thought we knew what the promise would do as a result of it being here. And since that time, books have been written, articles, Good Morning America, you name it. People have been talking about the Kalamazoo Promise, but from your lips to our audience, what wisdom have you gained in the Kalamazoo Promise? Like, you thought you knew, but when applied, there was another truth you figured out. What are some of the wisdom points that have come out of leading a miraculous gift like that in a community like this?
You know, um, your long time education experience teaches you that every single student is having an entirely different journey.
Mhm.
No student's journey is parallel. So, wisdom point, a scholarship is not enough. I don't care how much it is and how generous it is. It is only a vehicle to allow you to move forward. Another
Throwing
wisdom,
money at the issue is not it
that's not it.
by itself.
That is correct. And for those who think in that terminology, you know, some people think, well, if everybody's not using the scholarship to go to college, you're only throwing money at the issue, right? That's what they'll say. But this is a hand up. This is not a handout. And so what we're trying to do is help people understand this vehicle. And we do believe strongly education is the best way to help somebody move forward. I say the fastest. It can take time to get a degree. It can take time to get certificate, a vocational education. It can take some time. But with that education, it is your best opportunity to move and matriculate to the things that you want in life because you can demonstrate that you have a skill and some knowledge. And for the people that are in charge of hiring and putting organizations and moving them forward, you have to demonstrate that, period. You have to
Yeah, and
demonstrate that.
so the scholarship alone won't get you there. It's the supports, it's the mindset, it's the partnerships, it's the collaborations, the like it's almost like you go back to the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to get a student educated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Is that
Or
fair?
else yeah, every city has schools in it. As we've talked before, our number one human capital strategy for the nation is education. Take it
Yeah,
away.
the
I mean,
education runs our economy because it's 8 to 5 daycare. It allows both
absolutely.
people to work while the kids are at school.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to argue that, go back to COVID and tell me what happened when they closed the schools across the country. It was almost pandemonium.
It almost split the country.
It almost split the country entirely. So we
Yeah,
believe education is the way to get it done, but we know a scholarship's not enough. This is not a panacea. Because the Kalamazoo Promise has spent $250 million in 20 years, this scholarship is promised in perpetuity from day one. They said if it's going to work, it has to have the time to grow, water it, germinate, make it happen. This scholarship's promised in perpetuity. You graduate from the Kalamazoo Public Schools, you are eligible for this scholarship, and this scholarship is one that gives you 10 years to use it. Everything else we know is use it or lose it. So that's why we say, this is the most generous scholarship. Over 300 programs have started since the scholarship was announced nationally. El Dorado Promise, Pittsburgh Promise, Riverside Promise. There's a number of them, but none have the generosity of the Kalamazoo Promise. That's what makes it so special. But because it's so
man, talk
generous,
about a seed that grew.
yeah, I know it lets us work, move, grind, make mistakes, explore. And that's why we went from 2 employees to now 30. And those team members that have come on, each one came in to fill a need and a gap, whether people are trying to figure out transportation, childcare, you name it. So we're not a social service outfit, but we do have some programming. We work close with our university partners, our college partners, our vocational education partners. We changed the tagline 9 years ago now to your path, your promise, because most people heard scholarship and thought bachelor's degree. They did not hear scholarship and think plumber. But you can get vocational education. You can get a pathway to a good, high-paying job and wage and change yours and your family's trajectory. It's an amazing opportunity.
We hear a lot about the wonderfulness of the promise. And yet every time you open your mouth about the wonder of it, you hear about those who are not taking advantage of it. And it seems like some of these folks who are not taking advantage of it, the students who are not getting the benefit of this gift, there's some commonalities over time. And I'm a big believer in somebodyness, that everybody is somebody, and there's even school districts and places around the country who talk about every child, every time, every opportunity, all kids matter, all these taglines, and yet, if you look at the data clearly, we collectively have some work to do. I'm not blaming the schools. I'm not putting onus on parents. I'm saying it takes a village. And so you've been close enough in the system, out of the system, adjacent to the system, as a leader, as a board member. You've had almost every seat around how a child gets educated. What contract, covenant does the village need to make with our kids to turn things around, to make sure kids have a real opportunity at the life they want? What are
I
the
love
shifts, man?
well, I love this one because the old adage that it takes a village applied for many, many years. I have added something to that adage. It takes a village, but only if the village will let you. And what I mean by that is when I was younger, if Miss Jackson brought me home by my ear and took me to the house, my mother said, "Get inside. Miss Jackson, whatever he did, I'm sorry, he won't do it again." This and that. I had no story. My story was I had no story. So my story was in the fact that she had to bring me home. It was an embarrassment to everybody else, and it was a testament that I had been out doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. Fast forward to now. Get your hands off my child. What did she do to you? So the village has changed. The village has become extremely critical of education. The village has become skeptical of what is going on in the school and stuff. I think if we're going to make the change, we have to get trust instilled back into our educational systems. We have to
You
make
were
sure
a
that we
principal.
That's right.
How do you build trust in the day to day? Like you were a principal of the largest high school in the region. What do you do in the daily? How does that manifest itself?
You have to spend a lot of time with those parents of those students. So people used to ask me all the time, "What is your plan for parents?" We would do a school improvement plan, and there had to be a parent engagement strategy. Now, I know that I made my bosses frustrated all the time because I would just write there, "My parent engagement strategy is to help students have a good experience at school." Because basically we knew if a kid went home and said, "School was great, I had a good day," we wouldn't hear from nobody. So we were invested in what we were providing for the students that were coming to our school. On the flip side, for those parents who were challenged with working with their students, receiving phone calls from the school, had students that were having a hard time matriculating in, being in the structure of the school day, I worked hard to convince them, don't run up here to the school. Don't start yelling at teachers. Come and see me. And we built a relationship where I would meet with parents regularly because I know in their heart all they wanted was their precious student to get the education and the opportunity that it looked like was available. But they were having a hard time doing that. So I spent a lot of my time just talking with parents. No paperwork. No none. Paperwork came later. I was doing 14,
Right.
15-hour days to get that done. But talking to parents, trust us. That was it most of the time. Don't leave your job. I had parents get up out of their chair at work, come running to the school because they're mad because, they thought teachers were yelling at their kids and this and that. Teachers are not perfect. But believe me, we believe they are at some point. By the time we send them to school and expect all the things that we expect out of a teacher, we are actually expecting a perfect soul to be working with our children. When we find out
Supernatural.
that teachers are human and all that stuff, then a lot of hell breaks loose, right? But it really was working with students, Tim. So we built a level of trust where people would actually say, "All right, let me call Vaughn." Everybody had my cell number. The whole city was on the bus. Everybody had my number. Call me. Let's work it out before get elevated to a point where that trust gets eroded. But I do think that as a community, we have to decide that this scholarship opportunity is important enough for every student that receives it, that we do our work to build a trusting relationship with the school. Imagine if everybody was like my mother was back in there. Get in the house. Do what you're supposed to be doing. Why is
No
this
excuses.
person bringing you home? If that was the mentality, imagine what that would look like for the student on the other end. We just don't have that. So it takes a village, but will the village let you? That is the next question we have to ask our communities. Will you let the village do
And
it?
we got to
Because
be honest about that now,
we have to be
because
honest.
the teachers, God bless them. We have other educators on the podcast. They take a lot of unnecessary shots for things that they were never prepared to do, but also things that people in the community who have the responsibility for it refuse to do or
That's right.
can't align themselves around to do it. So it really, that trust is important. I think for me, the definition of trust is that you'll have a confident relationship with the unknown. That when something happens and I don't know, because of all the little things we did to build that confidence over time, I don't have to come up to the school,
That's right.
right? Because I saw a bunch of other things done well. And I
Yeah.
think that's what you're saying, like the small conversations with parents, the visit, that it's getting back to the basics of engaging the human, the humans around the child who support the child. And that's a tall task in 2026.
It is, and being honest about what that means. It takes a village. So what does that mean? What in my mind, what does that mean when my son or daughter leaves the house? The village is out there taking care of them. What does that mean? That someone's giving them food along the way? Or does that mean that someone's giving them a backpack? Or does that mean they're checking them when they see bad behavior? You know, what does that mean? And that checking them on funky behavior used to be what the village was. It wasn't the good stuff. You didn't even hear about the majority of the good stuff. It was bringing Tim home when Tim was messing around, wasn't doing his homework, out past streetlights, whatever it was. So that village was stepping in a support way to make sure that your child was going down the right path. That's what the village takes. So now how do we feel about someone checking our children? That's what we have to ask. How would I feel if somebody was out there checking my child and bringing them home because of the behavior that they were engaged in? I know there's a lot of distrust out here. Don't nobody want to talk, anybody talking to their kids and all that stuff like that. But I do suggest that a community that has philanthropists and people providing an opportunity like this can get together and do it differently. And that trust can be
Von,
created.
say, when you think about the future, students who are now in third grade, when they graduate from high school, the promise will still be here.
Crazy, right?
And when you think about their future, what are you working on now to make sure that when you're done at the promise, we're even closer to the dream of the promise? What are we working on now for the future?
We're digging into what these disparities are. There's been lots of institutional barriers for over the years. We've got poverty in Kalamazoo, that can match poverty anywhere else. So even though we have this scholarship, we have people without housing, we have poverty, we have a lot of the same issues other cities have. We are working on trying to figure out how this education opportunity can contribute to a lessening, I dare say, eradication of, but a lessening of those things. And one thing that we have found, one of the brightest data points for me, because we can go all day with how many people are graduating, underrepresented students that are graduating, using scholarship, all that, a lot of beautiful numbers. But one of the biggest numbers that jumped out to me the other day was when the promise was announced. Promise students, or Kalamazoo Public School students, after graduating from college, 24% home ownership. Since the announcement of the promise, 44% home ownership. This is huge when you understand what real estate can do and home ownership and those types of things. That's huge. Most people won't point to that. It won't be as exciting as it is for me. But man, that's changing generational poverty. That's changing the
Stable
trajectory.
housing is big.
It's huge. And we have an affordable housing crisis here in Kalamazoo, like the rest of the nation. That's another thing that needs to be solved. So we're delving into how can we help those individuals that want to increase that percentage of home ownership be able to do that. And some people say, well, you a scholarship, you doing that? Well, yeah, we have to, because we want that scholarship to contribute to those beautiful, successful, stable lives. So we're looking at that, Tim, but we're paying a lot of attention to the fact that you have 10 years to use our scholarship. This is what makes us different. I can look at my list and say, ooh, Tim started college. He didn't call us for scholarship dollars. What's going on? And so we're getting in people's business. I'm calling people on the list we call them stopping out. I'm calling you because you have 10 years. I want to find out what's going on, how we can assist, and no fair calling without solutions. No fair calling without being an organization that can help you find your way and take you there if we have to. I'm not just going to be like, come on, man, give it the old try, you know? No, we're going to say, what are you doing? Come see us. And if we have to drive you there, we will. So that's where we're putting our work. We want to continue to see that transformation in this community and what these beautiful donors are providing be successful. And we feel like we are.
It's almost like the scholarship has become an invitation for service.
It
You
is.
found out you're not administering a scholarship, you're serving the conditions for which a student can take advantage of.
That's it.
Is that the major shift?
That's the major shift. Yeah, we're seeing that. So it's not about the fact that you get the scholarship. So for many years, the scholarship led the student. So I'm going to college. We gave everybody all the supports they could have in high school, carried them every single day, guided them to the door, did all that. Now you get to college, all that support is gone. Scholarship is there. Yeah, your tuition is paid, but you've fallen off a cliff. And what we have to do is the scholarship's got to be behind, the student's got to be leading the scholarship. Their skills and abilities have to be first and foremost. Oh, it just so happens it's paid for. Yeah, but I'm here. And so that's what we want to start to happen to translate over the next 20 years, is that the student is so strong, foundation is there, and then by the way, I can go anywhere I want because I got the money to do it. That's the way we want to do it. But when the scholarship is leading the student, man, we find a fall off all over the place. And for us, it's those that have been challenged, marginalized communities, students of color, still predominantly find themselves at that cliff. And we got to stop that.
Well, it's in a lot of ways it happens at the system level. It's in the DNA, but the good thing is you're in system and that the promise is a counter system to help support and to move conditions for students. And I love that. Let me get you out of here on these last couple questions. First of all, after the time and energy, the heart, the soul that you've put into education and your time, and that's really what it is. You put your soul into it. What still brings you joy about doing this work? What's joyful for you?
When I was a principal, the greatest day was graduation.
Mm,
And, the students would come across the stage, you'd shake hands with them. Now, there was a good portion of students, you shake their hand, you didn't know them very well. They didn't interface with you much. They handled their business and they went. Then there was that portion of students that came and you spent a little extra time with them because they needed it. And, there was that hug. Man, Mr. Washington, thank you. And man, then there was that student that you both know that had you not had each other, that this moment wouldn't happen. And those parents let you know that. So graduation was still was really huge at that time because there was a body of work that took place. Every journey was
mm,
different, but students were better off that day
yeah,
than they were the day before because they had their diploma. And it
that's
still
special.
gives great special meaning for those who go on, get certificates, start a job. Ran into a young man yesterday. He got an electrician's certificate. Now he is employed at one of the largest building capital projects that's going on in the city of Kalamazoo right now. He's an apprentice electrician there and he's moving forward. Man, that stuff makes me feel like nobody's business. And so that kind of opportunity to interface with those students, over 9,000 students have used the scholarship. Kalamazoo is comprised of about 80,000 people. 20 years later, almost everybody in this entire city has been impacted by the scholarship, whether they hired somebody who used the scholarship or their children, whether they used the scholarship themselves. And we have those who graduated who's now their children are in the system. It's a beautiful thing.
Quick lightning round and we out. Are
Sir.
you ready?
Yes, sir.
Song that makes you dance no matter when it comes on.
Oh, McFadden and Whitehead, ain't no stopping us now. Got to get up and make a move. I've been trying to do the Dougie lately because that's what they're doing on TikTok. But I'm gonna stick with
The
McFadden.
Dougie came back?
The Dougie's a big thing on TikTok now, man.
Hey,
I
let me
would
just
show the
tell
people,
everybody
but I'll
right now,
spare
you're a young
everybody.
person. You got a pair of shoes you got to dance, you got a haircut. Just keep it. If you wait long enough, it's coming back.
It's coming back.
Don't go back. I got so many shoes I wish I kept.
Yeah.
Answers I wish I still could do because they
Oh, yeah.
back.
The Dougie's
So
back.
ain't no stopping us now, right?
Yep.
Is there a podcast you're listening to that you're loving? Where are you learning from?
We do a podcast here, and they call it Big in the Community. And
That
so I
shout out to
continue
Big in the
to
Community,
go.
Jonathan
That's right.
James, the host.
Jonathan James, yep. And I continue to go back and watch those episodes because he is talking to people, and Jonathan is a former Promise scholar. He was a student of mine at Kalamazoo Central when I was a principal, and so there's great pride there. But those individuals that come in, just to hear them talk about how the Kalamazoo Promise impacts this community from a leadership level, those are great podcasts for me.
Last question. What is your deepest hope for the students and community you serve? What do you want most for Promise scholars and incoming potential Promise scholars? What's your heart for them?
My greatest hope is that despite all the challenges that people may face in their overall life, whether it's paying bills, whether it's, raising their children, whatever the relationships, whatever the difficulty be, that if you are in Kalamazoo, you can actually look at this opportunity and say, we got something going different here. And we need to approach it with different solutions and not the same old problems. There are a group of people who have pledged the financial resources to make sure that every student that graduates from the Kalamazoo Public Schools has access to post-secondary education. This is absolutely remarkable. Philosophers have been here and spoken on it. People come and researchers are here. Everybody wanting to know if you give people access to education, can it truly make a difference? And it can, but sometimes when you are in the place that something is taking place, you can't see. And I do enjoy listening to Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle said that in many cases, people cannot look beyond their own pain. But if you could and say, nope, this is a place where they are trying and they do care. And how can I become a component of that trying and that care? If in 20 years we can realize that on a mass level, and that's the culture in Kalamazoo, I think that we will have done a miraculous thing.
Von, we've not only heard your story, we've heard your heart. And the truth is, you've had so many times throughout your life where you had to pivot, where you got unstuck, and now you literally spend your life keeping the lane of learning open for thousands of students. And the relationship that we share, I just want you to know I love and appreciate you. And I'm so glad that you're doing the work you're doing, and our students are better for it. I just want to give you your flowers now. People give you awards, but I don't think they know what you did to be seen and the sacrifices that you made. So I'm saluting you for the work you're doing on the behalf of children and community. And I'm just glad to have had you on Unstuck. Now, if you can go to KalamazooPromise.com, you can find out more information about the Kalamazoo Promise, about Von Washington Jr. and his leadership, the wonderful staff and students that are doing what I think they call the Lord's work in making education available for all students from all backgrounds. Because from the Kalamazoo's Promises perspective, everybody really is somebody. Thanks for coming today, Von. We're glad to have you on Unstuck.
Appreciate you, Tim.